Now we're going to continue the second part of chapter number 4, the split brain. Continue the amazing case of JW, the speaking versus non-speaking hemisphere. So which axial hemisphere is responsible for the speaking again? Just to refresh your memory. Which part here? Yes, the left part here. This is the speech part. Okay, so the split brain patient reports through the speaking hemisphere only. The item flashed to the right half of the screen. So if you give him anything in this right half, the visual field, he will be able to actually speak and and respond speaking. And denies seeing left field stimuli or recognizing object presented to the left hand. Nevertheless, the left hand correctly, as you can see here, retrieves objects presented in the left visual field about which the patient verbally denies knowing anything. So when you present in the right visual field anything to the patient, they will be able to speak and tell you, I saw this in the right visual, I saw that the mug, the cup, the screwdriver, number 3. But if you show it to the patient in the in the right visual field, I'm so sorry, in the left visual field, this is left, this is right, I'm so sorry. Okay, so when you show him anything in the left side, he cannot speak it. I'll tell you, I saw this. But if you just put it in his hand, he can always just recognize it and tell you, oh, this is a key. The amazing thing actually that the left hemisphere, which is responsible for the speaking part of the speech, if you ask the patient, okay, why actually you mentioned the key, he will create a story to make sense that why he was able to recognize the key. So it's really amazing. I mean, how actually split brain patient behave. So which visual field is better now? We want to test which one actually. Is it like the right visual field is better or the left? So this column you see here, this is the latency by millisecond. Latency means actually the time that the patient will take to respond to the stimuli, to tell you yes or no, or to tell you the name of the object, etc. So when you actually show them two comparable letters and the left visual field versus the right visual field, again, let's just recap. This is a brain and this is the right and this is the left hemisphere. This anatomical position again, okay? Don't forget that. Okay, so the left side control which stimuli and which part of your body. Left side controlling the opposite, the right side, and the right side controlled by the left side. Okay, so they have found that the latencies in both types of trials are much longer for the left visual field. Okay, so again, let me just recap. Okay, so this is not anatomical position. Okay, this is actually you're looking from the top. Okay, so this is actually your right eye, this is your left eye, okay? And this is the visual field. So anything any stimuli you show here will be processed by the right side here, and vice versa. So they have found actually that the latencies of both types of trial much longer for the left visual field. This one. Much longer. as you can see here. Okay, comparable or incomparable stimuli. Both actually latencies. This is the left visual field here in your left side, and this is the right visual field. So the graph showed the response latencies for comparable and incomparable pairs of letters in the left and right visual field. The latencies for both types of trial are much longer for the left visual field. Okay, this is a theory of minds. Task activate a network of regions bilaterally. These include the medial prefrontal, cortex posterior superior, temporal sulcus, and the precuneus, the hidden in the middle, this one. Hidden in the middle like longitudinal fissure at the parietal lobe, and the amygdala. This is the amygdala, and this is the temporopolar cortex. The attribution of beliefs is located in the right hemisphere's temporal parietal junction. Theory of mind is the ability to take another's perspective. So what actually the precursors of the theory of mind is the understanding of the agency, animacy and intentionality, goals and standard of theory of mind task. So the agency, the ability to behave and interact with one's environment, like being self-directed. Animacy, understanding that living things can act as agents. Intentionality, planned actions. Goals will be directed actions. So they just try to tell you that this actually theory of mind is located on the right side, or the right half, especially on those specific region of the hemisphere. So how actually we interpreting what we see? A split brain patient first examined a series of pictures that told the story of a man getting up in the morning and getting ready to go to work. A recognition test was done a while later, testing each hemisphere separately. In this test, the patients were shown a stack of pictures that including the original pictures and other pictures, some that had no relation to the story and others that could have been part of the story but weren't. Like for example, like this one. So this is part of the story. Someone is getting up to go to work, for example, and put some relevant and irrelevant pictures, and the patient will ask actually to if this is relevant or non-relevant to the story. So matching, what the patient is doing actually will be like matching and maximizing probability guessing paradigm, and the causal interference or inference, the causal inference judgments based in the right visual field. And the causal perception judgments based in the left visual field. Very, very interesting. Actually, like the interpretation of anything, the unique specialization of the left hemisphere now. Actually, the left hemisphere will be the one who actually perform the interpretation of anything. It's just try to make things make sense or explain things to make sense together. It's like this image exactly. So when the left hemisphere of the split brain patient PS was shown a chicken claw, on the right in his right hemisphere was shown as a snow scene. When PS was asked to point to a picture associated with the image he had just seen, his right hand guided by his left hemisphere pointed to the chicken right away, no problem. Because this is the speaking part as well, the left hemisphere, remember. Here, this is the speaking part. So pointed to the chicken. And his left hand pointed to the shovel. See, the left hand. It's like lifting hands guiding him, his eyes now. To the shovel. So when he asked why he had pointed those two things together, he replied, oh, that's simple. The chicken claw goes with the chicken and you need a shovel to clean out the chicken shell. See, he found some explanation. Of course, he wasn't aware that, yeah, was in his left visual field was processed by the right, and the right is non-speaking. So it's like, his hand, when he put his hand now in the stuff, he actually can tell, oh, this is actually, I saw this picture before. He don't remember or he don't call when he see it and why. That's why his left hemisphere was trying to make sense or to perform he is the interpreter. So the left hemisphere is the interpreter, okay? Now the right hemisphere, capacity of the right hemisphere is to make inference is so limited. He's actually so limited to explain things. Okay, so same thing here. The capacity of the right hemisphere to make inferences is extremely limited. In this test, two words are presented in serial order. Two words are presented in serial order, and the right hemisphere, which is the left hand, of course, processed by this, okay, by the right hemisphere. The right hemisphere, the left hand, is simply required to point to a picture that best depicts what happened when the words are causally related. So the left hemisphere finds this sort of task trivial, but the right cannot perform the task. They try just to find a clear difference between the two hemispheres, and actually these split brain patient were perfect candidate to make us understand. This is very nice one as well, the unilateral cortical lesion. So in this patient, when the patient has hemiparesis or has facial palsy, quote facial palsy, so the patient suffered brain damage to the right hemisphere. So the right hemisphere will be damaging which part? Again, yes, it's the opposite part, okay? So this patient suffered brain damage to the right hemisphere. The lesion did not interfere with spontaneous expression to the left. This is spontaneous one. Okay, see, he smiled. When he smiled, it's spontaneous, coming from the spontaneous pathway. But when you ask him, can you smile? The difference between the two faces, see, is obvious. Okay, so this one is moving, this part, which is actually his left side, is not moving because this is voluntary. So because, okay, for this to understand this one, the pathway that control the face or the facial nerve, there is actually spontaneous one and there is voluntary one. So this pathway, the spontaneous, was not damaged when this patient has the damage in the right hemisphere. The lesion did not interfere with the spontaneous pathway. There is a pathway especially for the spontaneous action of the face. But the voluntary one was damaged by the illness. That's why when you ask a patient to smile, he's not going to be smile. This patient, this is Parkinson patient. He has a mask face, as you can see. So the spontaneous pathway is damaged because it's including those nuclei well known with the Parkinson disease. So the patient has a typical mask face. See, mask face does not show anything here, right? The disease involves the part of the brain that controls spontaneous facial expression. The faces of these patients, when they are told to smile, to the right, the voluntary one, light up because the other pathway is intact. So here, the voluntary pathway is good. Spontaneous is damaged because of the Parkinson disease, okay? But here in this patient who has like right brain lesion, the voluntary one is damaged, but the spontaneous pathway wasn't damaged. That's why if he smile or you tell him a joke, he smile, no problem. But if you ask him to smile, you're gonna find the difference and you're gonna find the weakness in this part here, and the right part, and the left part of his face, I'm sorry. Here, this patient has mask face because he has Parkinson disease. So the pathway for the spontaneous is damaged, but the voluntary one is still good. So when you ask him to smile, he's gonna smile. Okay, this is very, very like nice example. The Descartes listening task, the comparing actually hemispheric specialization in the auditory perception. So you just give the Descartes listening task is used to compare hemispheric specialization in auditory perception. In A, competing messages are presented, one to the left ear and one to the right ear. Auditory information is projected bilaterally. Although most of the ascending fibers from the cochlear nucleus project to the contralateral thalamus, some fibers ascend on the ipsilateral side. Participants are asked either to report the stimuli, B, or to judge whether a probe stimulus was part of the Descartes message. Comparison focus on whether the participant hear the reported information in the right or left ear, with the assumption that the predominant processing occurred in the contralateral hemisphere. With linguistic stimuli, participants are more accurate in reporting the information presented to the right ear. This is the task 2, Descartes listening task 2, right versus left hemisphere dominance. Participants listen to the Descartes message in which each ear was presented with a series of letters sung to short melodies. When given a recognition memory test, participants were more accurate on the letter task for stimuli heard in the right ear. In contrast, a left ear advantage was observed when the participants were tested on the melodies. So this one is melodies, this one is letters. This is left ear, right hemisphere. This is right ear, left hemisphere. As you can see in the melodies, the left ear is much better, and in letters, right ear was much better. In the classic Descartes listening test, most participants correctly report more of the digits that are presented to the right ear, thus suggesting a right ear advantage. However, Kimura, using an adapted task, found that the right ear was better at identifying digits, while the left ear was better at identifying melodies. So just trying to find actually the difference in the split, like in the between the two hemispheres, especially when you study those like split brain patient. So I think this will do it for today, and I hope this will help you. And don't forget to do the homework for. As you know, there's like a very helpful question that when you practice, you will do much better in the exam. Hope this will help, and see you next lecture.